The focus here is certainly on the anti-immigration party Alternative for Germany. How likely is it that the AfD will win seats and maybe even control in any of the states that are up for grabs?
Well, on all three of the states, it looks like they're going to sweep into the parliaments. There's a 5% threshold to get in all three of the states are far above that threshold, and in one, they're almost at 20%. They're not going to be the largest party in any of the states, but it's very, very interesting because this was a party that looked to be decimated and over as a political force this summer. And that's exactly when the migration crisis started, and since then they have swept up in the polls, and it's tremendously symbolically important for Angela Merkel, because in a country like Germany, where this cardinal rule has there's never going to be a party to the right of Angela Merkel, where you suddenly have this populist and anti-immigration party doing very, very well, it's a political avalanche in the German sphere.
And of course, the leader of AfD is Frauke Petry. She's in her 40s, and she's an East German-born female scientist. Eerie parallels, right, to Angela Merkel.
Yeah, very interesting. You're absolutely right. And I'm curious, though, what kind of longer term this means for Angela Merkel and her party. I mean, is she totally losing momentum at this point?
Yes, I mean, the thing is, ever since the migration crisis started, Merkel, who, won the last national election simply with a photo of her hands, showing the German people, you are safe in the hands of Mutter Merkel, she has lost so much trust over this issue. So many people feel that the government no longer has control over what they see. I mean, we've had 1.1 million people coming into Germany in the past year. People don't know, are these economic migrants, are they refugees, but being very German about it, they haven't been able to kind of express these fears, and they feel that Merkel has lost control. They feel that her politics on this issue have not been right, and this is, a massive protest vote. So there was a poll out today saying 1/3 of Germans said that they would consider voting for AfD. Make no mistake, Merkel is definitely fighting for her political survival on the migration issue. So whether or not she returns...
No, forgive me, but if that wasn't an issue, if this hadn't happened this year, where would Angela Merkel be? Would she be in fine, or are there other issues that are also plaguing her?
There've always been issues around the Eurozone crisis and so on, and Europe policy as a whole, but nonetheless, given Germany's position in Europe, it's always, Merkel, let's not forget that until a few months ago, she still has approval ratings of up to 70% at times. Now that's slidden tremendously, but it's still at 50%, so, let's not forget that compared to some other European leaders, sure. Merkel is still doing well. And the other problem is that she's very Machiavellian. She came from the school of Helmut Kohl, so she's bopped all potential successors on the head. So even if she was to depart from German politics, it's not exactly clear who would take her place.
Right, there's a little bit of a vacuum there. Let's just say AfD does pick up quite a few seats and really makes a splash in Sunday's elections. Would that prompt Merkel to change course, perhaps backtrack on her refugee policy?
Well, if you look at what's actually happening with her refugee policy, she's already backtracked. I mean, what is the European solution that Merkel is pushing right now is that all migrants, refugees, illegal economic migrants, they all get sent back to Turkey. And then from Turkey, you basically resettle only Syrian refugees. What she can't do, however, is publicly admit, I was wrong, because what she did in the summer was make a statement that any Syrian who arrives at Germany's border will be offered protection. And by doing that, critics argue that she, gave a massive incentive for people to make that journey across the Mediterranean. So she's shifted her position quite significantly, but because of the politicking and the positioning, you won't catch her saying that publicly. That's just not going to happen.
All right, so I'm just curious, for our audience, certainly the financial audience and investors, the implications of these 3 state elections, what that could mean potentially for them. Good question.
Well, obviously, it's a big shift in German politics because you've always had very, very cozy consensus-building politics. Like I mentioned earlier, there was never the cardinal rule of German politics, unspoken rule is that you never have a party to the right. So this is unsettling when you have, a party that, let's not forget that one of the MEPs for the AfD the other day caused a huge ruckus because she basically said migrants should be allowed to be shot at the borders. This is happening in Germany, and this is something, this rise of the populist, anti-establishment, far-right party is not a phenomenon that's unique to Germany. We see it all across Europe, and also in Northern Europe, in liberal countries like in the Scandinavian countries. And that this is also now taking place in Germany, and this party is nationwide looking to be established as the third party. It's a political revolution. So, having said that, German politics is all about consensus building. So what would happen is the mainstream parties would club together and, disavow the AfD of having any real power. But it shows that on many issues of European politics, Germans are starting